Okay, welcome back to Dan the Democrat. We're doing a little rebranding here from Politics on the Prairie to Dan the Democrat, moving this under the main brand. And today we'll be covering another state in a video series I'm calling Redistricting Wars. This will be covering the congressional maps across the country that have been marred by gerrymandering. And this is Tennessee we have before us here. While this map isn't currently being discussed about being redrawn, this is definitely a state that has seen some gerrymandering as of its last congressional district drawing cycle. Today we're going to talk about the current map here, how it's a classic employs two tactics of classically gerrymander, and why one of those tactics actually has to be on this map. And then we're going to be talking about my interpretation of what a fair map of Tennessee might look like. So, without further ado, here we get into talking about the state of Tennessee. So, starting off with the first district, out here in the east, we see this area is pretty red. Honestly, no matter how you draw this district, is going to be very red. This is rural eastern Tennessee, with the largest community being Johnson City here. Not really super gerrymandered, or not really gerrymandered at all, really. My only notes I wouldn't take this Sevierville and Pigeon Forge area. Instead, I would go north to Tazewell, so I could give these communities to Knoxville in the second district. Second district is centered on the city of Knoxville in Knox County. None of these counties are blue, so this district is, again, particularly red, but a little bluer than its east and western district counterparts. Some areas are taken out of it, such as Oak Ridge and the previously mentioned Sevierville and Pigeon Forge, that I would include in there, just kind of as the central economic hub of Knoxville, keeping that together. Moving to the third district, this includes Chattanooga and Hamilton County. Again, not a blue county by any means. None of these counties are blue, but one of those Tennessee counties that could have the potential of being blue, but again, paired with some very rural areas a bit further. You could argue that this district is a bit gerrymandered just to keep some cities apart in different congressional districts, but not necessarily gerrymandering that would change the partisan result. One theoretically could draw a snake between Chattanooga and Knoxville and make a maybe pinkish district, but certainly probably not a blue one in that nature. Moving to the fourth district, we start to see some gerrymandering of the Nashville-Davidson area, but not until we get to the 5th, 6th, and 7th are we really going to get into that. But we see the very suburban-ish county of Rutherford, which contains Murfreesboro and Simra, put into very rural area in south central and southeastern Tennessee, containing communities like Fayetteville, Winchester, Tullahoma. And those areas are quite contrasting with the more suburban in character of Simra and Murfreesboro. But then again, it is still a pretty red district at R plus 44, so not really a huge change there. However, when we get into districts 5, 6, and 7, which we'll be covering together, we get into a classic redistricting method, a gerrymandering method rather, called cracking. So as we can see here, if we put on our county fill here, we have the blue county, if you can kind of see it, of Davidson. We'll turn off the fill there. And we can see that this county is pretty blue overall, about 27 points. And it is cracked between the three districts of 5, 6, and 7. Downtown Nashville and West Nashville/Davidson County going into the 7th. Eastern and northeastern Nashville going into the 6th. And then southern and southeastern Nashville-Davidson County going into the 5th. Now, the 5th is still somewhat competitive, on the edge of competitiveness. R plus 18 in 2024, which was a particularly bad year for Tennessee Democrats, with the state voting for 30 points for Donald Trump. In 2020, however, this area was only R plus 11, so quite a bit bluer there. Definitely some red shifting there from those two election cycles. About as red as the 5th Congressional District in Oklahoma. If you all are familiar, I mean, certainly I am. That's where I live. So, and a bit bluer, especially in 2020. We can see that these areas really kind of surgically take out these southern areas of Davidson County. These are particularly wealthy zones. If we turn on our income analysis here real quick, we can see taking out those communities near Brentwood and then going out towards Mount Juliet, as well as portions of, I believe this is Wilson County, or Williamson County, my apologies. I think this is also the most educated county. Oh yeah, by a lot here, or most educated congressional district, 45%. A bachelor's attainment over 25 by quite a margin. Moving on, if we turn on our presidential layer back here, we District 6, which is back out into, I believe this is the central and then eastern grand divisions. And, this takes a large portion of eastern Nashville. I believe this area, if I'm not mistaken, has a decently sized black population, yes, and we can see it there. We turn on this, yeah, we see quite a large different amount of diverse race spreading here in that portion of Davidson County. Again, this is still pretty red at around R plus 36 in 2024, and then dragging out here into very rural, the Upper Cumberland Plateau, as I've been told, with Putnam County kind of being the central of that economic nexus. Moving to District 7, which currently has a special election, again we see a cracking of Nashville's black population, which is mostly seems to be in north central Davidson County, again being put into District 7 here. This district is R plus 22, being R plus 14, or 15 rather, in 2020. You can see here, very red also includes Montgomery County, which is the Clarksville area, but red pretty much abounds, even taking in a little swoop here of Williamson County going into the Franklin area. Again, there's a special election here, and with it being R plus 22, Republicans feel pretty confident that they'll hold it, but certainly with special elections, you get strange electorates, so I know Democrats are moving fast and loose in this area to see if they can score a special election pickup. Getting into District 8 here, we are in the Western Grand Division now, and this is another super red, super rural district as we get even into northern parts of what would be considered the outer Delta region, which is an area of the floodplain with the Mississippi, though that is particularly in the state of Mississippi and Arkansas and Louisiana. But some people have argued that Memphis and this area of western Tennessee is sort of a part of that region as well, due to its rural character and large black population. As we can see here, this district is almost 18% black, with large pockets in Jackson, but certainly as we get closer to Memphis here as well in the excerpts of Ripley, Brownsville, and Bolivar. Finally, we get to the 9th district, which is the only Democratic district we have in the entire state. A supremely Democratic district, as it includes the city of Memphis with its large black population. This district clocks in around 60% black, as we can see here, pretty much all in the city of Memphis, with a tiny bit towards Covington. And of course, it is super Democratic, going for Democrats at around 43% in 2024, even though it did have a 5% Republican shift. So this district would be kind of known as a PAC. Now, the reason this district does exist, though, is the Voting Rights Act securing black representation rights for the black folks in Tennessee because they live in a geographically compact area here in Memphis. This district is usually drawn like this, and even under a fair map, it would be drawn like this, which segues us clearly into my version of Tennessee. So here we can see that there are 2 Democratic districts in 2024, and my numbering scheme is a little different. So I've kind of gone from west to east, whereas the other map went from east to west, though certainly my 9 is just kind of out there. But as far as a brief overview for mine, my 1 and 2 don't change too much, though mine remains clearly just within Shelby County, whereas the other map goes a little bit into Tipton County. One retains the Memphis-based district retains its incredibly democratic character as well as large black population. 2 remains pretty unchanged. As far as being the Western Grand Division district mostly. Here in the central portion of the state, we can see that I have uncracked Davidson County, though it is important to note that Davidson County does not have the population to sustain a congressional district on its own, so I went a little bit into Rutherford County, taking into the Simra area to draw a congressional district here, and here I have drawn, when I've attempted to draw a suburban ring district here with District 4, taking in Juliet, Hendersonville, the other part of Simra, Murfreesboro here in Rutherford County, Franklin, to create a suburban ring district. Now we can see that this district is still particularly Republican, but does keep a pretty solid community of interest and has high bachelor's attainment, as we can see here. We'll take off the fill real quick. And of course, a high household income, just keeping those communities of interest together. Whereas my 5th district kind of serves, kind of is more rural in nature, though certainly has some urbanized areas such as Clarksville, but definitely keeping it more rural than the gerrymander we've seen on the other map. Then we skip over to District 9, where this I try to keep the upper Cumberland together and then go into the more rural parts of southern Tennessee, but keeping it very respecting the grand divisions, hopefully. Honestly, this district isn't my favorite and probably should be redrawn a bit, but does try to remain purely rural district in its nature. With District 8, it is more centralized on the Hamilton County area. We don't see those reaches that we saw on the other district map, but still, even with it being more centralized around Chattanooga, Hamilton County, it is still particularly Republican. Going up into District 6 real quick. Again, this is just kind of my version. As you can see, I took it west through Tazewell and all the way out to La Follette, keep this northeastern portion of Tennessee together, while Sevier and Pigeon Forge get put back into the Knoxville region. Speaking of, going into that district, we can see that this is wholly centered on the what I believe is the Knoxville economic area of influence. Sevier and Pigeon Forge, Maryville, Oak Ridge, Farragut, and then portions of Lenoir City are put together here to create a very compact district, though still stupendously Republican, like the rest of the state. Those are just some of my thoughts on the current congressional map for Tennessee, as well as my version of how I would draw it. Clearly, we see the classic gerrymandering styles for both in the Tennessee map, both the packing and cracking, as we've seen with Nashville and with Memphis. Though with Memphis, you have to kind of do that to keep the black representation in that district well and alive. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm going to be producing a number of videos on the redistricting fights going on. We just got the California map, but as anyone remembers with the Texas map, that was particularly hard to load. So we're going to look into how to get that one properly displayed. And we're also going to be talking about some Oklahoma congressional district races and probably go from there and talk about competitive congressional districts all over. So thank you for tuning in today, and I look forward to speaking with you on the next video. It's been Dan the Democrat. Goodbye.